Mitch, it's happening. Mitch, south alarm. Mitch, they're 50 meters inside of the perimeter. Muster, revelry, come on, it's go time. Oh, it's just Drew. Oh!
I said stop going full force!
Well, I guess the next lesson is going to be a challenge passcode.
Come on. Okay, so we've been out here for a couple of hours with Mitch and we've learned a lot. We started from scratch, didn't know any of this stuff. Let me show you our setup and then we'll rewind and show you what Mitch taught us, you know, in real time. First trap we have here, we took the path of least resistance for someone tracking you, right? Or for someone following you. So this little tripwire right here runs up to our camp where there is a sound device, something that when someone passes through this, it's going to pull a log out from underneath a spooled up can and roll it and make a ton of noise. We'll show you that here in a second. So get around this. Over here you have a bunch of brush, stuff. This is not something someone's gonna wanna cross through, especially at night, At nighttime, they're going to wanna take the easiest path. So you come through here, and when you get to here, it's like, okay, I could take this easy route, but what if they're like, hey, I wanna take a harder route? Well, if they go over here, there's some down logs. If you go a little bit further, there's a ton of barbed wire just sitting there. So they could walk up to that. They're probably not going to, and if they do, they're gonna turn around and they're gonna take this way. Because look, there's a game trail. This is a normal place to walk. So as you're walking through here, you're probably not gonna see anything. And that's by design, because there is a tripwire right here with a lot of slack on it. This runs to 2 trees with glow sticks on mouse traps. This particular one is to make a slight audible crack, but then to also give us a visual cue under nods and at nighttime when it's pitch black out here that someone has crossed this second boundary line that's getting closer to us. Okay, coming through here. Come on, let's pick up the pace. Where is it? Where's the line? Oh, here's the line. We just said it and I almost didn't see it. We have a little fishing wire right here. This is the last trap. I'm gonna get under it. Nick, come on, be careful. Because we have this rigged up to a flashbang here and a flashbang here. So that if someone or something gets close enough to be an actual threat and get eyes on us in this brush, daytime or nighttime, it's gonna rock their world. Now, let's show you how we set all this up, why we set it up the way that we did. Let's kick over to Mitch.
So when we're talking about personal security, it's not just your gear, equipment, gun, and all that sort of stuff. You also want to think of perimeter security as well. The sooner you have information, the sooner you have the capability of actually taking action in order to stay safe. That's why, like for patrol stuff, they do the whole fire watch method, which is really annoying, but that's just one of the ways to set up another ring of security. The way that we look at setting up security is going to be in concentric rings. So for the initial part, we're looking at the core. So saying like the Leatherman is where we're going to be held up for an extended period of time. This is where I'm camping, all that other sort of stuff. What I want to do is build multiple layers of security for myself, or perimeters rather, that are surrounding my location. And if I can do it well, each one of these perimeters are going to be slightly different, giving me a notification and heads up as to when and where the next threat is and coming from, giving me more information upon their gaining ground towards my location and everything else. Now, it doesn't have to be even. It doesn't have to be perfect. You don't get to dictate terrain. But what you can do is you can start utilizing some of that natural terrain to your advantage and creating areas that are going to force individuals to move through it. We call it funneling. You're making the only viable and logical way to move to be the way that they have to go. And that's where you set up these early detection devices or tripwires or booby traps. You know, it doesn't really matter which kind you're going to be doing, the situation dictates tactics, right? So that's the same thing that we're looking at here. So the outer ring, this one, I would want it to be something that's going to give me a good notification of direction. So when it's activated from my position, I know generally in what direction something is coming towards me. I also don't want that to be so obvious that it gives away my position to anybody else that's coming towards me as well. So it's kind of weighing the risk versus the rewards for it and kind of going in that direction. But I want to know when something crosses this line.
Sure.
The next one, I want to gain more information, more data, and be more capable. And that's where we would have the next ring set up as well. The final ring, that needs to be something that's going to give me action. It needs to take place immediately from there. Now, that's really broad, and that's intentional, because the situations always can be different. You don't need to necessarily set claymores or anything else like that because, one, hard to get. Two, you might not want to blow them up, right? So there's lots of different things that you can do for these, and the only limit to how and what it is your own creativity and time. Like if you can think it up, if you have enough time, you can make it happen.
Let's say you're limited on resources, but you did have numerous people. Could you supplement Firewatch to just cover the areas that the tripwires weren't?
That's what we call like a roaming security measure, or it's still technically a concentric ring of security. So if I didn't have like the capability of this ring being available, I can take it out and have personnel patrolling within that area in order to build that next ring concentric security. Gotcha. If I didn't have even more people, I can take this ring out as well, and that's just another group of people. So this would be like HQ, this would be everybody else, and then so on and so forth. So you get to the outer perimeters of a fob, and that's also people. If you have a whole bunch of people, you can do the whole thing with personnel. Gotcha. If you don't have personnel, then you have to go back and do everything else on your own.
Are there SOPs to like what you should do when each one, like say the first one goes off, you should be doing something?
If I'm by myself, or if I'm with like a small group, I would want each perimeter to be distinct enough in its feature and style that everybody is spun up on, all right, if this signal happens, we're gonna start doing this, because say that outer ring we were talking about, big one, gets tripped. And I know within inside of this ring, that means that there is somebody that has tripped our perimeter that is, let's just say hypothetically, 150 meters away from our position. In a jungle environment like this, that's pretty far. You're not going to be able to visibly see that. But now whoever is the one unlucky SOB that's having to hold Firewatch for that, he's monitoring the traps and everything else like that, and equipment, making sure that things are ready to go. That first perimeter alarm gets set off, he starts getting everybody up, waking them up. And then say the next one goes off. And now we have an indication of, all right, well, now we have threats in the wire. Weird how it's like a term that people have heard and now it makes sense. We have threats in the wire. Known distance is going to be 50 meters. This is what we need to be doing at this time. Everybody should already be awake. Everybody should already be armed, ready to do whatever it is that you need to do. Take positions, do whatever. And then the last one could be they're right inside, execute the plan from there.
Yeah, because whoever it is has obviously not been deterred at this point by continuing to go.
The other part is I want to have each one of those rings, at least me personally, I want to gain different parts of information at each ring. The first one, direction, right? I want to know relatively what direction around me that thing is coming from. The second one, I want to know numbers and quantities and capabilities. So however I can figure out to do that with this ring is going to work great. The last one, I want to take them by surprise. So however you can figure out to do that with what you have available to you is how you can do it. I know guys that can set this up using like super high-tech electronic stuff and setting like infrared tripwires that set off like mesh-tastic watches and stuff like that. And they'll be like, hey, somebody just crossed the perimeter trip line. They're out at the farthest wire of our perimeter security. I have video and everything else. You can gain a lot of data very, very quickly if you have the skills, capabilities, knowledge, and equipment to get those things going. Not everybody's lucky to be that smart. I'm not that smart. I can't do that stuff. I'm not a coding wizard. I know guys that are. It's not me. So I would go almost total monkey style and build little improvised booby traps and tripwires in order to get that information in another way.
You ready to get monkey style?
I don't know if I like the way you say it, but sure.
Stop judging me. It's a standard ad read. Chill. So the Farm Puppies told me it was time to take an ad break and tell you guys about the sponsors that make content like this possible and free for you guys. The first one being 100 Concepts. We go way back with these guys. They make anti-reflective devices and all sorts of really cool stuff, including scrim. You should check them out. Also, Steel Industries. There's nothing better than coming out and going cow tipping under night vision. Just kidding, don't do that because you could actually hurt the cows. The other cool thing about Steel is if you live in Central Florida, you can actually go to their facility and look through night vision and pick out your individual tubes. So if you don't know what you're doing, if you don't know what questions to ask, you can literally go there in real time, go into a dark room, look through it all, and they'll help you pick out what you want and what you need. Also, Venture Surplus. We get a lot of our surplus gear, which is like extremely cheap compared to like the newer, fancier stuff, but works really, really well from Venture Surplus, along with MREs and things like that. And finally, My Patriot Supply. Whenever it comes to food prep and food storage, if you don't have a bunch of, cattle, then you're going to need to store some food, like pre-purchase all that stuff. And that's where we get all of our food from, is My Patriot Supply. We've been customers of theirs for years and years, and it's pretty dope to have them as a channel sponsor. And right now you can get $300 off a 3-month food supply from My Patriot Supply if you go to preparewithdc.com. Info and savings at all these companies are in the description. We don't get a kickback from any of that. It's just savings translated directly to you. So check them out, and let's get back to the show.
So once we've figured out what the farthest ring we want, the first ring of security is going to be, we need to make sure that we're also identifying the most common and easiest ways people are going to access through that ring. So like using this game trail right here, this would be the most logical way somebody's going to be coming into this thicket from the outside in order to gain access towards the direction of where we're held up. Once we have that first ring done, if that's the only ring I have, that's still enough information that if it works and is needed, I can actually take action, right?
Yep.
If you can only have the time to get one ring up, that's all you get. I'm not going to worry about going ahead and trying to set up other rings until I have the time, energy, resources to do so. The outer ring should be the first thing that you set up because it gives you the most time. And time is valuable in a situation like this. The difficult part is making it look natural. You guys saw like this tree that's already downed over here. It also creates natural funneling for us, right? I'm not going to walk through all the thicket of branches. It's too loud. It's a hassle. Takes too much energy. And I could get myself, gear, and everything else snagged up in it, and it becomes a liability. But if I just take like some of the sheet metal that we saw over there and start piling up on this, and it looks like a man-built wall of sheet metal, how does that read to you? Somebody has constructed this recently, right? I don't want that. So I would take dead things like this on the ground and just prop it up in different places, creating a natural psychological barrier for people to go, hey, you know what? I don't know if I really want to be going through this because there's more there.
Yeah. Yep. Could make noise if you move through it anyway.
Exactly. So if I have to go through this and I'm going like, that makes too much sense. Now you still have sound. Animals are not going to do that. They'll just see it. If they can go under it, they will. If they can go over it, they will. Deer are surprisingly quiet in the woods. So are moose, and they're freaking massive. So it's one of those things, they will go the easiest way just because it's smarter and they don't want to work harder. The other thing is we want it to be looking like nature did it itself. If you see clean-cut saw blade lines on everything, that's man-made.
Yep.
They'll know immediately, and now they're like, there's people inside of here, they were just here, they put this there. So sometimes it's better to use primitive methods of acquiring the materials to build these, either just breaking it off, ripping trees up or whatever, and placing them in position, as opposed to like going through and lashing up with 550 cord and everything else. You just want it to be laying there and look normal.
So then even if you don't have a form of security like making noise or light or sound, whatever it is, if you only have Firewatch, you're still reducing the amount of, like, you still have hot points where someone can prioritize.
Yes.
So before you do anything else, you're still creating a funnel, a fatal funnel, so to speak.
The more that I can have out there, the better. The more personnel I can have, or the more traps I can have, the more funnels I can have as well. It also gives me more data, more information. Now, if I have the resources, I want that to be one for at least every cardinal direction around me. Or so I have, in essence, a north, south, east, or west notification like, hey, something's coming towards me from this direction.
Gotcha.
This one, we're going to set up a tripwire that's going to be pulling a string from the camp. That's going to activate that spring-loaded alarm system.
Okay.
So all it's going to need is rope or cordage of some sort. We can use sticks for our actual notched trigger mechanism. 2 objects that are going to clang against each other and make noise. That's about as descriptive as it needs to be and as vague as it should be. Okay. Because you can do so much with so many different things in order to accomplish the same task. So one of the things I like to keep with me when going out and just, hanging out is a fishing kit. 1, I like to eat. 2, they're small enough that I can just fit inside a pocket and disappear, and it gives me access to a lot of other tools. So I've got a nice little spool of fishing line that I can utilize in order to set up a tripwire for like this entry point, and I don't have to waste a whole lot of time. It doesn't take up a whole lot of space, and we can just start setting up from here. The other thing to be aware of is the stretch of your cord and the tensile strength of the line. Fishing line is really, really flexible and springy. It stretches a lot. So you really have to stretch it out. You guys can see, like, it looks tight, right?
Yeah. Yep. Oh man, yeah.
It stretches a lot. It needs to be so tight that it's almost going to break all the way back to the camp.
It's a lot of stretch.
Because every single length of line that I'm going to utilize is going to add another level that it can stretch before it's actually going to be effective in setting off my alarm. So it has to be taken all the way out as you move, making sure that you don't have any slack in it. It needs to be taut. In Vietnam, what they would have is a trap or a snare line kit, which is actually wire. So it's snare wire that they were utilizing for setting up traps like this. And it would come on a little wooden spool, similar to this, but longer, that they could run out, hook up, twist with each other if they need to add length to their lines for setting up the traps or the trip wires. And the wire with the cable doesn't stretch as much, so it's much more sensitive. The color's there for camouflage, because the nice thing with string like this is that unless you're really looking for it, it can end up blending in with like all the spider webs and everything else like that. It's the same color, same composition. It's harder to see. So we'll string 550 cord around, like I was showing you guys inside of the shop. So it's just all the way around, tight, using like a square knot to hold it together. That's gonna have the stick that we're gonna twist around in order to build spring tension. And then from up top, we can string more line and hang stuff right next to it. The next part is going to be building the trigger mechanism that's going to come down and hold the stick in place so that when the tension's pulled, it releases the stick.
Cool.
It's supposed to be super sketch. Like I said.
Bro, that works! That freaking works!
So the idea behind this trap is that it gives an audible and visual signature. What we're looking for is for the individual prey or whatever it is that's coming through in order to actually make it past the trap itself. It's not meant to hurt, it's meant to give us more information. So as they're walking through, they don't see the tripwire that's in the way, and then all of a sudden, the trap gets activated behind them, cracking the glow sticks, and now they're backlit for me to see, giving us more information as to the number, quantities, gear, formation, things of that nature as they're making their report.
I know a lot of guys like to make like trap or early warning detection system kits, and it's just as simple as like a $1 pack of mouse traps. Comes with 4 of them, so they're a quarter a piece. A $1 Chemlight, which comes with 4 of them, so a quarter a piece, and then some line. And if you wanted to get really crafty, you could just bring like a little like home decor nail that's super tiny, smack that thing into a tree, and for under $1, you've got a trap kit. Kind of cool.
You guys are probably seeing like a pattern. The farthest one away of our concentric rings, right? Very, very low deterrent, right? The second one, a little bit more. The third one kind of gives them a bang.
Right.
The reason for that is I want to give them an escalation matrix to deal with. At the first tripwire of like, hey, something was here. I like just walked over something. I thought I heard something in the woods. Maybe I should not be going here. It should be pushing it away. Bear alarms, loud noises keep bears away and things like that as well, right? So that's why the first one's there. The second one is giving movement, light, and sound, which another indicator is like, if this hasn't deterred somebody from going this direction by this point, I really need to do something that will give me more of an advantage to either get out of dodge or get into an advantageous position in order to fight and defend myself. That's why this last one always ends up being a little more aggressive. Instead of having it right there, because as they're walking through, it's about head height, right? They'll see it. So we want it on the back side where it's not going to be seen. Feed. And as they come through, their body and lower extremities are tangled up in the jungle mush and foliage.
You're already accustomed to having your legs tangled up by stuff. Yeah.
So it's going to grab onto it and you're going to keep going, pull with it. It'll be snagged on everything that you have and it'll start pulling one and the other at the same time.
Cool.
You might get one then the other or one or the other because if they're connected to each other, like
it may not pull the...
Correct.
Yeah.
It might not be at the same time with the equal amount of force depending on how they decide that they're going to be moving.
Sure.
But it gives us redundancies. Or if we just have the one and we only want one setup, we can just have it going down, across, and anchored.
With enough tension.
Yep, so when they pull it, that's the only one that we have. And again, it all depends on the amount of resources that we have available to us. Maybe I only have one.
Sure.
So the nice thing about setting it up with fishing line in an area like this, especially when there's vegetation everywhere, is spiders are all over the place and they make their webs in the exact same spots that we want to have our traps set up. And the cool thing is they will make their webs off of our tripwire. So if we can leave this section in this area alone long enough, it's okay that it's at face height because it will become one of the spider's webs and just a part of it. And most people, when they see it, they'll be either not seeing it at all and just walk straight through it, or they'll intentionally go like this and activate it as they're walking through. So I don't care if this is at head height or face height at this point. It's actually going to be better for me.
Mitch, while we were doing all of this, we definitely covered some other things like the fact that a lot of this is going to depend on how much manpower you have, how much time you have. Obviously, we only set up one directional trap. We'd have to do cardinal directions, as well as we were laying out some string and noticing like wow, this one's far more obvious than another, and you brought up a lot more talking points that the audience didn't necessarily get. Are you able to sum some of those other concepts up for those that are watching?
Sure. The big part is like everything that I just showed you guys, it's all just an example or representation of what can be done. The only limiting factor in setting up anything like this is your own imagination and resources that you have available to you. If you can dream it and you can find the stuff to make it happen, nothing else is going to stop you from figuring out how to make it work appropriately. And they don't have to just be notification devices or distraction things. You can have very, very violent traps and things like that nature as well. Vietnam, it happened a lot. Look at Rambo movies, there's books on how to do that sort of stuff too. And it's not for people per se, but it's other ways of also, you know, getting animals, game, hogs, deer,
Course.
things like that.
Sure. Yeah.
So what you're saying is there's a lot of other content ideas that we could pursue.
Sure.
Guys, thanks for being here. Thanks for sticking it out and watching this. Hope you learned a lot. Hope you go home and get creative with this stuff and build your own little kits, if you will. If you're on a budget, we showed you some budget options. If you have a lot of money, you can buy expensive versions of this stuff, right?
Yeah, and it doesn't all have to be set up for nighttime, which is the primary purpose of what we put out, right? We want to have something setting up security for us while we're sleeping. But you can have things that are going daytime using actual rounds or like shotgun notifications and things like that as well.
That makes sense.
Sweet. Well, guys, if you're not hooked up on Patreon, if you're not in that crew yet, that's a good place to get all of our content early. It's also a good place to contact us because we're always flooded with messages and DMs. We can't get to them all, but we always get to Patreon. With that being said,
On top of the fact that Patreon gets content early as well. And if you guys are interested in getting a hold of Mitch and maybe taking some classes from him, because this is just one drop in the bucket in regards to what Mitch actually offers when he's offering urban survival classes or rural.
and you can find all of his content at agonicllc.com or to liveagonic.com. Which one is it?
They both go there.
Okay, sweet. He bought both URLs. Smart.
He also makes some of our favorite pants in the world. Both Drew and I were wearing them yesterday, but they got pretty saturated because we were doing a video in the rain. So we ended up wearing different pants, but they do make some of our favorite pants out there, as well as belts. And if you guys want to support us by buying some, this is running on really long.
It is. His pants also work great without underwear, but you'll want to buy the belt to go with it. With that being said, we'll catch you guys
if
next
you guys
week.
do find yourself
Stop.
That's all going on.